Hey guys, Jonathan here, and today we're comparing the 2022 and 2026 The Batman Batmobile Lego sets. Lego sent me the new one early to review, but of course all thoughts are my own, and this is a very fascinating comparison because it's probably one of the quickest turnaround times where the same set has been remade over again, and I'm talking about the exact same thing, right? Like we've had two Hulkbusters a couple years apart, but they're different versions of the Hulkbuster. This is literally the same car from the same movie, and it's very fascinating to see it rebuilt and remade so quickly. Of course, the original one came out alongside the movie, and that was released in 2022. That, of course, had 392 pieces, and actually came with two minifigures for $30, which would be about $36 with inflation today, and the new one comes out in 2026 with 330 pieces, so actually about 62 pieces less than the original, and it has one minifigure, which as of right now is exclusive, so it is interesting. They're around the same price point, but we got another minifig with the old one and about 60 more pieces, so it's going to be fun to break them down and see which one is more accurate in the end, but let's go ahead and get into it and start the comparison now. Now, when it comes to minifigures, we have had quite the change up from the original Pattinson Batman to the new one. Bear in mind, the new one is the main design from the Legacy of the Dark Knight video game coming later this year, so it probably had a little bit more intentional design put into it for this set, such as things like the dual molded legs and just really detailed printing that look phenomenal. Both use the same cape style, interestingly enough, with the single hole cape, and when we lift that up, you could see that the backs are very different as well. The new one has a lot more intricate detail, whereas the original one does have some tools on the utility belt and the back brace and everything, but overall, we've just got a completely different level of detail. In fact, the new torso, of course, the new one being this one, has a lot more smaller details printed into it, which is really incredible. But getting things like the pouches being the same, and even like the holster, or I guess the straps on his right leg are really incredible. But the dual molded printing on the new one just really blows the original out of the water. And while I don't think either cowl works particularly well for Robert Pattinson's Batman, I do think the new one works better than the old one by comparison, just because Pattinson's Batman doesn't have very high bat ears on the cowl. And while this one is probably still higher than Pattinson's cowl's ears, it definitely looks better than the tall ones on the original. The original also uses just the standard Batman head, whereas the new one uses a slightly newer head. Ironically, I think it's the exact head they used on Steve Harrington from the Stranger Things Creel House set, but I really like that it has more of a unique look, whereas this one is literally the same Batman head that's been on set since 2012. So it really feels like, aside from the new torso and the new legs on this one, Lego kind of phoned it in, whereas on this one, we're getting a really nice mold here, a thoughtful use of a new head, and of course a new torso and leg print with the dual molded legs that just really make this one stand out. I'd be remiss not to say too that the original one came not only with Batman, but also the Penguin. Check it out, Ma, I got my own minifigure. So, when you think about the fact that both sets are $30, granted the original one was $30, not accounting for inflation, which would be about $36 now, it does just make sense to get a villain with your set too. Or at the very least, get a sidekick for Batman or something like that. That's one place where these 2026 Batmobiles fall short, is not getting a sidekick character or a villain, because basically you just get Batman and his Batmobile and nothing to incite a mission or anything like that. So getting the Penguin in this set was incredibly cool and really did add a lot of value, which on the minifig standpoint certainly, I don't want to say makes up for, but definitely adds some bonus points to that original set for sure. So the original Batmobile is an interesting story because the Batman sets actually came out toward the end of 2021, way before the movie actually came out in theaters, which is just so fascinating and interesting to me. But of course, that means this was probably designed based off of concept art rather than the final look of the movie, which, you know, again, is kind of its own interesting thing, and it was designed in an era where Lego was just obsessed with these Power Blast elements being in superhero sets, so I figured I'd show you what it looked like with those in, but of course, they're all very easily removable. You basically just have to pull parts and pieces out as you go. Very simple to do. Then, of course, the one in the back removes very easily, and we've got a great engine printed, built in the back, but we did have a nice printed piece there. So I love that engine in the back being exposed. It's super cool. We can lift up the roof and the windscreen there to see that there are actually 2 seats inside, but as we all know from the movie, there's actually only 1 seat in the Batmobile, you know, for optimization and everything like that. So it's not super accurate to the film, but it is nice to have it built on that 8-wide style. So, you know, for adventures and play, you can fit 2. And speaking of play, this one was also designed with hidden missile launchers up front when you press down the center. So that is very cool, and I like that quite a bit. But again, that lends itself a lot more to play than display, which I feel the 2026 one probably does just a little bit better. Although these are all Lego sets, so they're all designed for play. But one other thing you'll notice on this is the amount of stickers on the side of the doors here. We've got one on the roof, on the hood, as well as along the front here. So not as many stickers on the new model. Oh, taillight stickers too. Can't forget about that. And inside the engine there. So there are an awful lot of stickers in this. And I do like the way that it's built up at an angle, kind of like a stock car kind of feel. So that is cool, and I like it a lot. It's a lot more blocky than the new one. And speaking of that, why don't we just go ahead and bring in the new one? We'll take a look at it individually, then we'll look at them side by side. But this one has much more kind of like off-road style tires, which is an interesting choice. But the engine up front is very cool. In fact, we can lift that up and out to reveal that 20 years of Lego Batman tile celebratory printed underneath there. And I really like how they put those yellow pieces in there for the headlights that are just kind of visible from certain angles. That's the word I'm looking for. But using more modern piece techniques, we're able to get a very cool build out, which when we look at the actual pictures of the Batman Batmobile, I think it's a much more accurate representation of the sizing and shaping of the car. In the back, we do have the engine built here as well. It's a lot more compact than the last version, but it still looks pretty good. And we can lift off this giant 6x6 tile. And then, of course, we have 1 seat on that 8-wide construction still. But it's really nice to be able to, you know, have Batman on his own in there. Oh, yeah, and we also have some stickers printed in there, too, on the dashboard, which, interestingly, are actually kind of similar designs to the original one. So now we'll go ahead and do the side-by-side comparison so you could see that we do have some very interesting parallel but different sticker designs on the interior there. The block engine in the original one is much larger and takes up much more space than the new one, but also in general, the first model is significantly bigger in just about every way. So we'll put those roofs on so you could get a more accurate representation. But remember that original set is 62 pieces more than the new one. So it definitely, you know, expands out into the build. It sits higher. It has more of an angle. And overall, I think it just has more presence than the newer one. But I do think that the newer one is more accurate to what we see in the movie, especially when we put the image back up on the screen here. I think you just get a lot more detail in the new one with less real estate to do it with, which is pretty interesting. I really like the angling of the front of the new one, how it's built in there, whereas the original one is a lot more flat. And I think that really, like I was saying earlier, the original one just falls victim to the fact that it was released at a time where it was probably based off of concept art, whereas this one has had a couple years of toys and finalized art and, you know, post visuals to be able to reference. So overall, both are really cool models, but when you look at them side by side, you can tell that this one had a little more time to have its homework completed, and overall, I think it benefits for that in the end. All right, guys. Well, I think both of these really have a lot of their own merits and a lot of excitement. You know, in the actual film, the Batmobile only has 1 seat, as we mentioned, and for a lot of reasons, I do think that the new one is better than the original, but the original one does have such a cool muscle car feel to it, and it just has so much mojo with it being the first one. I like a lot of those stickered pieces that add extra detail, but at the end of the day, I think both are really cool models, and I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. I will say, if the new one did come with a second minifigure, I think it would be the undeniable better value one, but the original one having the penguin in it, well, ma, it's pretty cool, huh? Anyways, let me know what you guys think of these. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. Check out my other Batman 20th anniversary videos on the channel now, and I'll see you guys on the next video.